Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. So today I have an LA Noire lore video for you guys, and I wanted to do a lore video on something that a lot of people missed in the very first case in the game, which is called Upon Reflection. Errol Schroeder, the man that you actually arrest at the very end of the case, is not the killer. That's right, he isn't the killer. And this video is not some dumb speculation, but I actually have proof and concrete theories on what happened exactly and who really murdered Scooter Peyton. So what exactly happened and who is the killer? Let's first start with the crime scene and a summary of the case. At the very start of the case, the narrator says that you can't trust anyone, your partner, or even the captain. This is actually very important to the plot of LA Noire, as well as this case.
In the Marine Corps, you deal with the chain of command. Mistakes get made, but you deal with them. You know what you're fighting for and that you're on the same team. But dealing with corruption is like chasing shadows. You never know whether the guy you're talking to is on the pad, or whether it's your partner, or maybe even the watch commander. So who do you trust, Cole? I made up my mind a long time ago.
This case is your first introduction to corruption in the game. The story of LA Noire centers around massive amounts of police corruption and political corruption in the late 1940s. We see many corrupt characters, from Roy Earl to the police chief to the mayor, but there are also other corrupt cops in the game that you might not have noticed. So anyways, let's get to the murder scene. A black man named Scooter Peyton is murdered in an alley at night. It's in a pretty remote location in the industrial district, but there's something you can notice right away, and we don't notice it because it's our first case. The vast majority of other cases in the game, revolving around murders, thefts, drugs, etc., have some kind of witness. We have someone that either saw the crime, or found the body, or found the crime scene. But in this case, we don't have a witness. We have no record of who found the body and what time. Isn't that a bit strange? Now I know people in the comments will say, but Professional, someone might have heard the shots and called it in. Perhaps. But think, this is an industrial district, and it's at night. If someone heard a loud bang, they might think that it's from a factory, or maybe a car exhaust. This happens in the real world. When people hear gunshots at a distance, they might not always think they are gunshots, and we know that 2 shots were fired. Once we arrive on the scene, we meet Floyd Rose, who is Rusty's current partner. He doesn't seem to care about the victim, Scooter Peyton, and he actually makes a racist comment towards him.
Floyd Rose, homicide. You might back up?
Yes, sir. Phelps and Dunn, Wilshire Division.
We had a shooting took place down this alleyway. We have the Vic, Scooter Peyton, a Negro male bagged up and on his way to Central Morgue. Witness says a tall white guy, our shooter, put 2 in the Vic's head and then threw his piece. I need you guys to try and recover the gat.
You want us to look anywhere in particular?
Give it your best shot, guys. The dead guy's a lowlife. I'm not expecting any miracles here.
And if we recover the weapon?
Bag it and return it to technical services.
You hurry it up, Floyd. We got
I'm outta
places
here.
to be.
Happy hunting.
He tells Cole to investigate the scene and seems annoyed when Cole asks him what to do with the gun if they find it. Cole and Ralph start investigating the scene and they find where Scooter was killed.
Have it your way. We'll search right up to the back wall. If you still don't come up with anything, come find me and we'll talk it out. 2 heads are always better than 1.
Shooter put him up against the wall and blew his brains out.
After walking for a little, we find the reflection of the gun in the window and climb the roof to get it.
Hell of a way to go.
Ralph, there's something on the rooftop.
How the hell did you see that?
Reflection in the window. Looks like it might be our weapon. I'm going to see if I can find a way up there.
All right, don't hurt yourself.
Now the gun is actually the first sign that Errol did not commit this crime. You're probably wondering, but Professional, isn't that his gun? So it's proof he did it? Well, yes, it is his gun, but remember what Cole says here.
Smith & Wesson, serial S71893. 2 rounds fired, and instead of dropping it down a drain, our shooter hoists it up here. Interesting guy.
Do we call it in?
Let's see if he's at home. Owning the gun doesn't prove he pulled the trigger.
Okay. In for a penny, in for a pound. Lead the way, Gunga Den.
Just because it's his gun does not mean he's the one who pulled the trigger. It makes him suspicious, no doubt, but the gun could have been stolen, sold to someone else, etc. Let's take a listen to what the gun shop guy says here, And this is our first big hint that Errol is not the killer.
Officers Phelps and Dunn. Can you tell us anything about this gun?
Smith & Wesson, Model 27, registered Magnum. Chambered for .357, nickel-plated with pearl grips. Same gun used by General Patton.
You're not suggesting he's the owner?
No, I'm not.
You seem to know a lot about the weapon.
I ought to. I sold it. You know, this piece will stop a rhino. These babies are only available special order. Here's my Smith & Wesson order book.
You mind if I take a look?
Be my guest. This is about something bad, right?
Model 27 with pearl grips, Cole. You see it on there?
We're in luck. Errol Schroeder, 203 South Glass Street. Ordered the gun in February 46. Thanks, you've been a big help.
Anytime. Always happy to help out the LAPD.
He says the gun is a Smith & Wesson Model 27, chambered in .357, nickel-plated with pearl grips. He says he won't forget a gun like this because you can only get them custom-made, and he made it himself. So remember what Cole said about the gun.
We have the gun, Cole. Let's take it back to Central. We could get a commendation.
Could show some initiative, Ralph, and see if we can come up with an owner.
That's a long shot, Cole.
It's a pretty fancy gun. You know a local gun store?
Sure. There's a place a couple of blocks from here.
It's a fancy gun. It's nickel-plated for the shine, and has pearl grips which aren't going to be cheap. Nickel plating is basically a form of finish on a firearm. There's also bluing finishes for firearms, and today we have stainless steel. The finish is primarily done to prevent rust. However, the primary reason that people get nickel-plated firearms, and I want to give a special thanks to my good friend in real life, Constantino, for explaining this to me, is because they are shiny. Nickel plating, it also does fight rust, just like bluing does, but it's more expensive finish on the firearm. But the reason that people get nickel plating, it's not necessarily to fight the rust, their primary reason. They could have had the gun blued. The reason they get nickel plating is because they want the gun to be shiny, so that it can look better and they can show it off. Thank you again to my friend Constantino for explaining nickel plating to me. I really appreciate it. So in essence, it's a form of finish on a gun to prevent rusting, and much more expensive than bluing, the most typical form of gun finish in this time. And most people who nickel plate get it for the shiny look. Up here, I have a picture of a revolver that has bluing on it, and one that is nickel plated. Which one do you think is cooler looking? I think most of us can agree it's the nickel plated one. This is not a cheap process, and with the pearl grips, this becomes a very expensive firearm. Just think about that for a moment. If Errol was planning on killing Scooter, why would he do it with such an expensive gun? And not only that, but toss it away in such a sloppy place in the roof near the body. Wouldn't it make much more sense for him just to get a cheap .38 revolver and use that and then dispose of it after? It doesn't make any sense going to such effort to make such a nice gun to use it in a murder and then leave it near the scene. Ralph actually says this while you're driving to Errol's apartment.
Now that wasn't so hard, was it? Just because we're in uniform doesn't mean we can't use our initiative.
I guess so. Seems a little too good to be true. One-of-a-kind murder weapon bought locally using a real name? If Schroeder's our shooter, he's no criminal mastermind.
Most of them aren't. That's why they get caught. And 2 out of every 3 crimes are done on impulse.
Another fact from the Phelps Encyclopedia of Thin Air. You really are full of it.
Once Cole arrives at Errol's apartment, they ask him if he owns the gun. Errol seemingly confirms this, but then when Cole says that Scooter Peyton was found murdered with his gun, he confirms his connection to Scooter and says he works for me.
What do you guys want?
I'm Officer Cole Phelps. This is Officer Dunn, Wilshire Division. You're the owner of a Smith & Wesson Model 27, nickel-plated with pearl grips?
I might be. What of it?
Then you'll be surprised to know that Scooter Peyton was murdered tonight with your gun.
You're out of your mind. Scooter? He works for me. I have that gun here in my drawer.
Errol says the gun is right here and goes to look for it and then freaks out when it's not there.
What the fuck is going on here?
You're under arrest, Schroeder. Cuff him, Ralph.
No way. You're not taking me down for this.
Now this is further proof that he didn't do it. For one, there was no evidence linking him to Scooter. If Errol denied it, other than the gun, it would be very hard to identify any kind of connection between him and Scooter. He's pretty confident in his answer, and he says, "My gun is right here." No one who is innocent is going to be showing the police where their gun is. If he was the killer, he probably would have said, "I sold the gun," or "the gun was stolen." That would make it much harder to prove, but he has no idea his gun is stolen, so he's confident that he's going to be proven innocent. So in essence, Errol has been framed. But who did it exactly and why? Well, we have the answer when we look at his book right here.
Ralph, you all right?
I'm fine. I hardly felt it. He's lucky he caught me off guard.
List of names and a series of numbers. Floyd Rose's name is in this book.
Phelps, we can come out of this all bright and shiny with a commendation. Or stick our schlongs in a hornet's nest. Call it in, partner. And leave the book where you found it.
Officer Phelps, badge 1247, requesting.
Floyd Rose's name jumps out at you right away. Now, who is Floyd Rose? He is the guy at the start.
Floyd Rose, homicide. You might back up?
Yes, sir. Phelps and Dunn, Wilshire Division.
That's right, he is Rusty's partner, and the guy who calls in Cole and Ralph to help search the scene. His name appears twice in the book. One on November 22nd, 1946, with the number 40 right next to it. And again, just 1 week later, on December 1st, 1946, with the number 50. Now, Floyd is particularly important because his name and Leroy Tate's are the only ones that appear twice in the book. If we look at Leroy Tate's first date, it's on November 6th, 1946, and he has a number 50, and then he also appears nearly 1 month later on December 3 with the number 20. Now, who is Leroy Tate? I knew I remembered that name from somewhere. You might remember him from the case Buyer Beware. He appears 3 cases later, and him being there is for the game showing you how deep the corruption is, that it runs directly in your face. Corruption is right in your face, and you don't even realize it.
We have the murder weapon.
And the murderer. The girl saw it all. Our killer works at a jewelry store called Hartfield's.
That's a couple of blocks from here.
You thinking what I'm thinking?
Tate, maintain the perimeter.
Additionally, there is a Theodore Rossi that's also in the book, or Ted Rossi. I want to give credit to the LA Noire wiki for this part. I didn't even know who Ted Rossi is, but apparently he's also a corrupt cop. He appears in the white shoe slang for a moment. I don't know how the wiki knows his name because his name isn't mentioned in the game. He does have a small conversation with the captain, which is here.
Skipper, is the new letter genuine?
Now, boys, we all know how many imbeciles have confessed in the short case. Ray Pinker will let us know in good time.
Yeah, I'm thinking of moving up to a 45. I want to stop him with 1 round. I'd get on the trail if I was you.
I'll link Ted Rossi's page down below with the LA Noire wiki, so check it out, guys. Additionally, Ted Rossi appears in Monroe's book taking a $450 bribe, which could be over $6,000 in 1947, confirming, in fact, he is a dirty cop. So Errol's notebook has 3 dirty cops in there. So who's the killer? It's most likely Floyd Rose. His name pops up instantly, and we have more evidence that he did it. If we fast forward to the first traffic case in the game, we can actually see Floyd Rose sitting there. He does a sarcastic clap when Phelps enters a room. Additionally, when Phelps walks into the police station for his first traffic case, he is shown a map of the planned freeway systems for Los Angeles, and we don't think that much of it right here, but this is the corruption that's being shown to us right in front of our faces, right in plain sight. The Suburban Redevelopment Fund was scamming veterans out of their homes, and on top of that, what they were doing is they were trying to defraud the government through eminent domain to build
the hot sheet is posted here next to the map.
What's his problem?
That's Biggs. He's an institution.
So this is what all the fuss is about. Why couldn't they build a freeway that goes past my place?
They haven't even approved the money yet, kid. The bond issue won't be till December. It'll be years before any of this will happen. Here's your new partner, Stefan Burkowski.
I've heard all about you, Phelps. You go easy on me and let me earn the odd citation, and maybe we'll get along fine.
I'm here to learn, Detective.
Oh, he's an intense one, isn't he, Mel?
Who's intense?
The newly minted detective here, Cole Phelps.
Hi, Phelps. I'll be keeping an eye on you. I could spend a little time basking in reflected glory. Make a change from busting hookers and dope fiends.
Who was that, Commander?
Roy Earl, chief detective and advice.
Do they all dress like movie stars?
Well, Roy is a movie star. And the whole of the seedy side of L.A. is his audience.
What is that supposed to mean?
Stick with me, kid. You'll find out.
Make sure you watch Floyd Rose very carefully here. He is going to be sit in the blue shirt and the black hat on the right side when Phelps walks in. Pay attention to him looking at Phelps and his reaction.
And now some housekeeping. Warm Central Division welcome for Detective Cole Phelps. Some of you guys may know Phelps. He's the cop who broke the jewelry store murder. Stand up and take a bow, Phelps.
He also seems to be not paying attention to the captain and in a pretty bad mood.
Shh, quiet, everybody.
Phelps is one of only 2 serving LAPD officers who received the Silver Star during the war. Really gave it those lousy Japanese, eh, Phelps?
I did my best, Captain.
Why are you war heroes always so modest? I've partnered Phelps with everybody's favorite Pole, Stefan Bukowski.
Hope you like work, kid. Bukowski sure as hell doesn't.
Well, that's why we are partners, right?
Okay, can it, guys. Stick with Bukowski. He's a good cop. He knows traffic inside and out. I'm going to start you out with 1 case. You do okay, I'll give you a couple more. You screw up, you'll be rousting vagrants and running license plates. Now get down to the PE Freight Depot, 6th and Alameda. A patrolman called in a suspicious vehicle. Signs of foul play. See what you can find out.
Come on, Phelps.
But remember, Rose is a homicide detective. Traffic is a lower division than homicide. So why is he in traffic exactly? What is he doing here? It's most likely a demotion, because after Cole found the book, the homicide captain Donnelly probably covered it up. We know that he is willing to cover up crimes, especially when there's a politician involved, as in the Black Dahlia case. But what about Rose? Well, you have to remember that Donnelly is a man that believes everything is for the greater good. He will let criminals he deems less bad go to charge criminals he deems are worse. For example, in the homicide case The Golden Butterfly, the evidence points towards Hugo Muller as killing his wife. We know later on that both him and Eli Rooney are innocent when it comes to the murder, but the evidence points to Hugo Muller killing his wife in that case. Cole wants to charge Hugo, but Donnelly believes that Eli Rooney should be charged for the murder because he's a child molester. Donnelly believes that even if Hugo killed his wife, he probably won't kill again, and so he's not a threat anymore, but Rooney is still an active threat that will prey on children, so he wants him charged for the murder. I'm not defending Rooney here. He's a scumbag and a pedophile. The point that I'm getting at is that in this specific crime, in this murder case of Deidre Muller, the evidence points towards Hugo, but because Eli has a really bad record, Donnelly wants to charge him despite the evidence saying otherwise. I will have a lore video on that case and Donnelly in the future, but I want to focus mainly here on this case of Errol. Rusty also says the same thing about the case. He wants Eli charged despite Phelps saying the evidence says otherwise.
I say we make Rooney for this. I think we should lay it on him. He was near the car, he had her jewelry, the DA will love him for it.
Even if he didn't do it?
Who cares whether he did it? You have kids, Phelps? He needs to be taken permanently out of harm's way.
And we let Mueller slide?
For a while. He gets a free pass for now.
The thing about this situation...
I don't know about this. My gut says Mueller. We caught him trying to destroy evidence in his backyard, and that was his car with the bloody tools in it.
I never said it wasn't Mueller. Hell, he probably killed his wife, deprived that poor kid of a mother. But he's not in immediate danger to anyone else. Rooney's a threat to every kid at Belmont.
He's a peeper, Rusty. We can pick him up for something else.
You really want to run that risk?
What I think happened here is that Donnelly found the book after Phelps had investigated the scene. He realized that Floyd Rose was connected to this crime. He most likely figured that Errol Schroeder, being a criminal, is worse than Rose. So he let Errol go down for the murder, even though he didn't do it. You have to remember that the police are extremely racist in this time period. And because the victim is a black man and an associate of a known criminal, they will care even less for the victim. They call him a lowlife.
Floyd Rose, homicide. You might back up?
Yes, sir. Phelps and Dunn, Wilshire Division.
We had a shooting took place down this alleyway. We have the Vic, Scooter Peyton, a Negro male bagged up and on his way to Central Morgue. Witness says a tall white guy, our shooter, put 2 in the Vic's head and then threw his piece. I need you guys to try and recover the gat.
You want us to look anywhere in particular?
Give it your best shot, guys. The dead guy's a lowlife. I'm not expecting any miracles here.
And if we recover the weapon?
Bag it and return it to technical services.
You hurry it up, Floyd. We got places
here
to be.
Happy hunting.
And remember that witness statement that Floyd claims to have taken? Well, there was just something off about it. And I don't think that that statement was even real in the first place. I think he made that up because he claims the witness told him a tall white guy. But Rose isn't that much, taller than Phelps. And Schroeder isn't that tall either. He's, similar height to Phelps, too. So I think that story's made up. He says that a witness told him that he saw, the victim get shot twice in the head, and then the person just threw the gun up on the roof. And you're telling me that they saw all this in a dark alley in the middle of the night? What was the witness even doing in the dark alley in the middle of the night? So I just don't believe this. I remember I saw an interview one time with a mafia hitman. It was like a 1970s interview, and the mafia hitman had killed dozens of people, and he even shot them in broad daylight, where there's plenty of witnesses. And even in those situations, witnesses were never able to identify him. And he said the reason is that when he shot somebody in the back of the head, everybody would get down on the floor. And they were hoping that they wouldn't be next. They wouldn't be looking around, seeing, what the shooter's face looked like. They'd be trying to get out of there, run away, and keeping their heads down. That's what they would be doing. So I highly doubt that some witness made the statement that he saw some guy shoot Scooter twice and then throw up the gun up on the roof. That was basically Rose just creating a story for the situation that he himself had created. And as for the racism, in this time period, the police were extremely racist, and he chose Scooter as that victim on purpose because he knew that Scooter was a black man, and so they were less likely to take the investigation seriously. That's why Floyd chose to target Scooter, because he knew the police wouldn't care if he was found murdered. As for Scooter, while we don't know exactly what he did for Errol Schroeder, I think he was involved in his criminal dealings, which leads us to our next question. What exactly was Errol doing? What kind of crimes was he committing? I think we can rule out drugs pretty quickly, as he would have been mentioned in the Vice cases. He doesn't seem to be involved in organized crime, so what is he doing exactly? The numbers in the book are most likely money amounts. He paid Floyd Rose $50 on one date, and then a week later $40. $50 is over $700 in 1947, and $40 is over $500 in 1947. The reason he most likely did not put dollar signs next to them is because he could claim, if caught, the numbers represent something else. As we walk around Errol's apartment, we see a bunch of boxing stuff. I was thinking at first maybe he was involved in rigging fights, as we saw in the story, but most likely not. If he was rigging fights, he would be paying much bigger bribes out. And how would the police have even found out about it? I think he's just a boxing fan. My theory on what he does is he is most likely a professional thief. He probably steals stuff, and he has a crew with him, including Scooter. There was a burglary desk that was cut, so maybe Errol was part of that originally. That's just my guess at this point, that he's a burglar. I don't see any evidence of drugs, or mafias, or rigging fights. I think he's a burglar that breaks into various homes, and he pays off cops to cover up his crimes, or if he's stopped. That's how he knows Leroy Tate. Remember that Tate is in Errol's book, but not Monroe's. How would Tate even come across somebody like Schroeder? Probably during a crime that happened. He probably got called to the scene, and he paid off Tate while he was about to be arrested. He most likely asked Tate about where police patrols would be at certain points, which would make it easy for him to hit homes. Now about the two detectives in the book. We have Floyd Rose and Ted Rossi. Why does Errol have two homicide detectives in his book? There's two possibilities that I see. Remember, the detectives also act as regular cops. That means if they see a street crime, they can respond and arrest the person, as we have many street crimes in the game. It's possible Floyd Rose and Ted Rossi came across Errol and Scooter on a job and he paid them off. It's also a possibility, since he's a homicide detective, that Errol killed someone during a job that went bad, and he paid Rose to cover it up. Rose probably got greedy and demanded another payment next week. That's why it's so soon after. The reason that Rose chose to get rid of Errol is because he realized Errol was sloppy and a loose end and a liability. How do we know that Errol is sloppy? Again, he used his real name for buying the gun, and he hid it in his drawer. I know some people will say, but can't you make the argument he was sloppy with leaving the gun there also? No, because the gun is extremely expensive. Even the stupidest criminal out there isn't going to use the most expensive gun and then dump it. Here's also another possibility. What if Errol was involved in 2 murders? That's why he called up Floyd a week later. It's either that, or Floyd was greedy and wanted more, or that Errol killed someone else and needed Floyd to cover it up. Floyd took the money, but then was thinking, this guy is sloppy, and he knows me. It's only a matter of time until he gets caught. If he gets caught, he will talk to avoid prison time, and he will most likely implicate me, Floyd. Corrupt cops are some of the most untrustworthy criminals ever. Criminals in general aren't trustworthy, but corrupt cops are the worst. They will betray you the moment they think you are a liability for them. And when they don't need you anymore, they're going to get rid of you. Cops know the system. They know that you can be used as a witness against them. That's why corrupt cops kill so many people oftentimes, because they don't want them to be witnesses against them. I would trust a mafia boss more than a corrupt cop, and I'm not exaggerating. Just think about all the people that Tenpenny in San Andreas had CJ silence, because they were witnesses and they were reporters on his dealings. So why did Rose choose to do it this way? Why not just straight up kill Errol Schroeder? Because this way, he can take his time to get rid of any evidence and not have to worry about anyone questioning him over it. Remember, he has to get evidence. He has to get anything that can link him, possibly, to Errol Schroeder or to Scooter Peyton. So how did this murder happen exactly? First, Floyd Rose needed something to directly frame Errol Schroeder with. It was very easy to do so, which was his personal gun. How did Floyd Rose know about this gun? Oh, that's easy. There's two ways he found out about the gun. The first way, is which I believe happened, is that Errol showed off the gun to him. Think about it. If someone has something cool like a fancy gun, new car, jewelry, they're going to show it off to their friends, acquaintances, and family. And Errol showed off his gun to Floyd Rose and said, "Hey Floyd, take a look at this cool gun I bought," thinking that Floyd was his friend. Floyd took notes of that, and that's probably what happened. The other possibility is that Floyd went to local gun shops, identified himself as a cop, and asked to see their records, seeing if Errol purchased a firearm. He then knew what he was looking for. Even if there was no record of Errol owning a firearm, Rose must have figured he probably owned one. His fingerprints would be on the gun. Then he picked the lock to get into Rose's apartment and found the gun. Remember where the gun was. It was in his top drawer, not even locked. Anyone searching the apartment for just 5 minutes would find it. He then left the apartment and had the gun. Now's the next part of his plan. Scooter, since he worked for Errol, most likely knew Floyd Rose as well. Rose somehow lured him to that area. Remember, Scooter is most likely a witness to Rose's corruption, so Rose wants to get rid of him too. He lured Scooter to that area, probably telling him, "We need to talk, meet me in this alley." Scooter probably did not think anything of it. He probably thought it was time to pay off Rose again, or that Rose had some information for him. The moment that Scooter met Rose, Rose pretended to arrest him and put him up against this door. Scooter did not resist because he thought it would probably make it worse for himself. He was thinking, my boss Errol will get me out of this. Once Rose put him up against the door, he fired one shot into his chest, and then once he went down, he fired another round into his head. Now I know what people are going to say. But didn't Rose say he fired 2 shots into his head? Yes, that's what Rose said. But we don't know that that's what's true. Remember, the coroner leaves the scene. We see the coroner get in the car, and he leaves the scene. So it doesn't tell us exactly where Scooter Peyton was shot. But how do I know this is what happened? Because we have seen this same execution before. In the case Nicholson electroplating, we know that Mapes is another corrupt cop. He went to Tomoko's apartment looking for the plans to the new process and any evidence linking him to Oscar Hangstrom. He found the Lockheed worker there and pretended to arrest him. He put him up against the wall, shot him in the chest just to make sure he didn't miss, and then he shot him in the head a second time after he went down to make sure he was dead. This is the same way that Scooter died. Shot, you just look at the forehead.
On James Lindbergh. Very expensive watch. Favored by flyboys. I always wanted one as a kid.
That's funny. As a kid, all I wanted was some food on the table.
Also, whoever did this, I will tell you, is that this person is experienced, and I can tell right away, is because if you want to know where they got shot first, the person got shot in the chest first because it's the biggest target. The killer moved into the apartment, lined the guy up against the wall, shot him in the chest, he went down, and then he shot him in the head. The reason he shot him in the head a second time is to make sure they were dead. A lot of criminals do that, is they will put 2 shots into a person, and 2 shots typically in the head, just to make sure that the person's dead.
Could be a class ring. One to the head, one to the heart. Point blank.
Also, look at the how his eyebrows and hair is frozen. He's been in that fridge for at least a few hours. In 1929, during the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago, Al Capone's gangsters dressed up as cops and pretended to arrest several members of the North Side gang. They pretended to arrest them, put them up against a wall. The gangsters didn't think anything of it. Then they gunned them all down. And that's probably what had happened in these situations, is that both Mapes and Floyd Rose had both put the Lockheed employee and Scooter Peyton up against the wall, pretending to arrest them. They probably did not resist, thinking they were getting arrested, but in reality, it was their execution. They were made an easy target against the wall. And so we know that Scooter Peyton has been shot twice, because when we also look at the gun, we see that 2 rounds have been fired.
2 rounds fired. And instead of dropping it down a drain, our shooter hoists it up here. Interesting guy.
Afterwards, Floyd threw the gun on the roof and arrived at the scene pretending to investigate. He probably started making a bunch of racist comments as to what he said to Cole and Ralph, and said that Scooter was a lowlife. Rusty was probably rushing him out as he says that when Cole and Ralph arrive.
Floyd, we got places to be.
Happy hunting.
Rusty is a lazy cop and wanted to go home. So here's the question. Why didn't Floyd climb up the pipe and get the gun? Simple. Because it's below him. He thinks it's too much for him. He's certainly not climbing up there. He's the big bad detective. He doesn't have to do something like that. Regular officers have to do that. Remember what Floyd told Cole and Ralph to do.
If we recover the weapon, bag it and return it to technical services.
Bag it and return it to technical services. Floyd and Rusty went home that night. Floyd did not expect Cole to go to the extra step. He thought that Cole was just going to return the gun after he found it. The next day, Floyd would have gone to the gun store with Rusty, pretending to find exactly who owned the gun and going to Errol's apartment. What Rose would have done next is kill Errol. He would then claim that Errol resisted. He wants Errol framed for the murder of Scooter, and he's going to kill Errol to prevent him from talking. How would he do this in front of Rusty? He probably would tell Rusty something like, wait in the car, I'll deal with this real quick, and Rusty probably would. Remember, Rusty is lazy, and he goes along with whatever Cole says, even though he's been an officer for much longer. It should actually be the other way around, where Rusty should be the one instructing Cole, but he just basically listens to whatever Cole tells him to do, because he just doesn't feel like doing work. He doesn't feel like doing the work, so he would gladly sit in the car. Remember that Schroeder freaked out when he saw his gun wasn't there and said, "You're not taking me down for this."
What the fuck is going on here?
You're under arrest, Schroeder. Cuff him, Ralph.
No way. You're not taking me down for this.
He never admitted to it. He just said he's not going down for this. He would resist Rose, and then Rose would kill him. Then if Rusty rushed in, he would tell him he resisted, and Rusty wouldn't think much of it anyways. And Rose probably would have been really quick and would have taken that book without Rusty seeing. Now, was Rusty involved in the corruption? There really isn't any proof he was. Rusty's name does not appear in Monroe or Errol's book. It's a possibility the bribes for Rose were split between him and Rusty, but I see no proof Rusty is involved. Rusty, remember, does say that he's willing to frame Eli because he's worse.
I say we make Rooney for this. I think we should lay it on him. He was near the car, he had her jewelry, the DA will love him for it.
Even if he didn't do it?
Who cares whether he did it? You have kids, Phelps? He needs to be taken permanently out of harm's way.
And we let Mueller slide?
For a while. He gets a free pass for now.
The thing about this situation...
I don't know about this. My gut says Mueller. We caught him trying to destroy evidence in his backyard, and that was his car with the bloody tools in it.
I never said it wasn't Mueller. Hell, he probably killed his wife, deprived that poor kid of a mother. But he's not in immediate danger to anyone else. Rooney's a threat to every kid at Belmont.
He's a peeper, Rusty. We can pick him up for something else.
You really want to run that risk?
Also, in the studio secretary murder, when asked if Rusty can sleep easy, knowing they arrested the wrong man, he tells Cole it depends if anyone else found out about it.
Let me pose a question.
Depends. What's it got to do with?
Morals. Would it bother you to put the wrong person away?
Depends.
On what?
On whether anyone except the poor son of a bitch in the slammer ever found out.
In essence, Rusty doesn't care if he arrests the wrong person as long as they are a scumbag. The biggest proof that Rusty is possibly in on it is, remember how in the first traffic case, Rose is there at the front table giving angry looks? Well, if you go to the back of the room, you can find Rusty. There is no interaction with him, but he seems to be pissed off. Why is Rusty here exactly? My theory is that the captain demoted him temporarily to traffic to see if he was involved. After the captain did an investigation, he probably swore Rusty to secrecy and put him back in homicide. He didn't want to be short 2 detectives and probably reinstated him. Rusty also says that Rose was forced to retire because he was fighting over the job of chief of police.
What happened to Rose?
Parker wants the chief's job. Word is it's either going to be him or Thad Green. So they're both clearing the decks.
So where does that leave you, Galloway?
Leaves me saddled with a chump like you, Phelps. I didn't ask for you and I don't want you, so keep it to yourself. See if you can learn something about seeing how a real cop operates.
It's entirely possible that Rose knew something about the chief, because remember, he's corrupt. So basically, they made Floyd retire. Captain Donnelly, fearing for his position, probably let Rose retire with a pension and swore him to secrecy. He probably looked at it and saw that Rose killed a criminal and framed his boss, so it was fine. Rose was obviously pissed because he wanted to still be a corrupt cop, but had no choice, and so he blamed Phelps. That's why he does that sarcastic clap and is annoyed. It's possible Captain Donnelly saw that Phelps was the cop that figured this out, and that's why in Buyer Beware decided to promote him to traffic. As for Ralph, Cole's partner, is he corrupt? No, there's no proof he is. He's just scared of the captain and the homicide detectives. He tells Cole he doesn't want the captain getting on his case.
Are you sure about this? It's not really our gig.
No harm in doing some digging. The suits didn't seem to give much of a damn.
Such a little Boy Scout, Cole. You can't wait to get out of that uniform, can you?
You'd rather round up drunks and help old ladies across the road?
I'd rather get through the day without the captain's foot up my ass.
It'll be fine, Ralph. You worry too much.
Do we call it in?
Let's see if he's at home. Owning the gun doesn't prove he pulled the trigger.
Okay. In for a penny, in for a pound. Lead the way, Gunga Din.
List of names and a series of numbers. Floyd Rose's name is in this book.
Phelps, we can come out of this all bright and shiny with a commendation. Or stick our schlongs in a hornet's nest. Call it in, partner. And leave the book where you found it.
Officer Phelps, badge 1247, requesting.
The reason he tells Cole to leave the book at the end isn't because he wants to help Rose, but because he's scared of Rose and the captain. And lastly, here we are. We have this question. What happened to Errol after this case? If Rose was forced to retire and Rusty was sworn to secrecy, well, what happened to Errol? It's possible, just like with the homicide cases, he was let out on a technicality. The captain probably told him not to commit any more crimes or they will come back after him and will be watching him. He would keep talking about police corruption, so that's probably why they let him out. It's either that or they kept him in prison and they destroyed any evidence that was linking Rose to it and decided to keep him on those murder charges. Regardless, Errol's criminal career is over. I hope that you guys enjoyed this lore video. It took me some time to make this, and I want to make more lore content on the other cases. It's kind of crazy that the first case in the game can have just this much detail and link it directly to corruption and your future partner Rusty, which you encounter in the game. The developers really did an outstanding job with leaving little hints like this in that case. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, please do drop a like. It does help me to make more content like this, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone.